What began as a routine Senate hearing erupted into a political spectacle that captivated the nation. Senator Elizabeth Warren, armed with data and fiery rhetoric, aimed to dismantle Senator John Kennedy on live television. Her plan was to expose what she saw as his hypocrisy on economic policy. But Kennedy, with one razor-sharp line, turned the tables, leaving Warren stunned, the room buzzing, and the internet ablaze. This wasn't just a debate. It was a masterclass in political theater. A moment that revealed the raw power of wit, timing, and the digital age. Let's unpack how a single exchange became one of the most talked about political moments of 2025. It was supposed to be just another Senate committee hearing, dry, procedural, and forgettable, held in a stately room in the Dirksen Senate office building. These hearings typically involve lawmakers poring over budgets, grilling witnesses, and trading polite barbs for the C-SPAN audience. But on this day in early 2025, the atmosphere was electric. The topic was economic policy, a perennial flashpoint. But the real tension stemmed from the clash of two larger-than-life figures: Massachusetts' Elizabeth Warren and Louisiana's John Kennedy. The political climate was already fraught. The 2024 election had left the country polarized with debates over tax reform, wealth inequality, and corporate power dominating headlines. Social media platforms like X were battlegrounds for ideological warfare, amplifying every gaffe and zinger. Against this backdrop, the hearing promised more than budget talk. It was a chance for senators to score points in front of a national audience. The room was packed. Staffers shuffled papers. Reporters adjusted their cameras, and spectators filled the gallery. Sensing a showdown, Warren, a progressive icon known for her relentless advocacy for the middle class, sat with a thick binder of notes, her expression focused. Across the room, Kennedy, a conservative with a Foley charm and a knack for memorable quips, appeared relaxed, his eyes scanning the crowd. The contrast was stark. Warren's intensity versus Kennedy's calm. Both were seasoned combatants, but neither could predict how this day would unfold. When Elizabeth Warren took the microphone, the room fell silent. Known for her prosecutorial style, honed during her days as a Harvard law professor, Warren didn't waste time. Her target was Kennedy's voting record, particularly his support for a 2024 tax bill that offered significant breaks to corporations. To Warren, this was a betrayal of Kennedy's public persona as a champion of the little guy. "I'm Anna. You've said time and again that you care about the working class." "Senator Kennedy," Warren began, her voice steady but sharp, her eyes locked on her opponent. "You talk about small-town values, about families struggling to make ends meet. But when it came time to vote, you chose billion-dollar corporations over those same families. You sided with the boardrooms, not the break rooms." The accusation landed like a thunderclap. Senators glanced up from their notes. Reporters scribbled furiously. Warren pressed on, pulling out an arsenal of evidence: voting records, tax code analyses, and direct quotes from Kennedy's speeches. She painted a vivid picture of a senator who preached populism but practiced elitism. "You can't claim to stand for Main Street while patting Wall Street's pockets," she said, her tone rising. "The American people deserve honesty, not doublespeak." Warren's attack was meticulously planned. She cited statistics on wealth inequality, how the top 1% now held more wealth than the bottom 90%, and tied them to Kennedy's votes. She referenced soaring rent costs, stagnant wages, and corporate loopholes that she argued Kennedy's policies enabled. "In Louisiana, families are choosing between groceries and gas," she said. "But your tax breaks are funding private jets for CEOs." For a moment, Warren seemed unstoppable. Her delivery was passionate, her logic airtight. On paper, she had Kennedy cornered. The gallery murmured, and social media began to hum with clips of her takedown. Progressive accounts on X hailed her as a truth-teller, while hashtags like #WarrenRoasts Kennedy trended. But Warren's intensity, while formidable, had one blind spot. Asterisk, she underestimated her opponent. As Warren concluded her barrage, the room held its breath. All eyes turned to John Kennedy. A lesser politician might have faltered under the weight of Warren's accusations, reached for a scripted defense, or stumbled through a rebuttal. Not Kennedy. With the ease of a man who'd spent decades in the political arena, he leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and flashed a small, knowing smile. It was the kind of smile that said, "I've been waiting for this." Then looking Warren straight in the eye, Kennedy delivered a line that would echo across the internet. "Senator Warren, I've seen more common sense in a Louisiana crawfish boil than in your entire economic plan." The room erupted. Gasps mixed with laughter, and even Warren's allies couldn't suppress a chuckle. The line was vintage Kennedy, folksy, biting, and perfectly timed. But he wasn't done. With his slow southern drawl, he began to dismantle Warren's arguments, not with a flood of statistics, but with a blend of humor and plain-spoken logic. "You talk about lifting up the working-class senator," Kennedy said. His tone calm but pointed. "But all I hear is more taxes, more bureaucracy, and more red tape. You don't help the poor by punishing success. You help them by giving them a shot at it." He accused Warren of relying on emotional talking points while ignoring the real-world impact of her policies. "I may speak with a draw," he added, "but I read the same bills you do, and I vote with my head, not my headlines." Kennedy's response was a masterclass in political counterpunching. He didn't just defend himself. He reframed the debate. Where Warren leaned on data, Kennedy leaned on narrative, painting her as an out-of-touch academic whose plans would strangle small businesses and burden families. He invoked images of Louisiana fishermen and single mothers, contrasting them with Warren's Washington solutions. And he did it all with a twinkle in his eye, as if he were sharing a story over coffee, not sparring in a Senate chamber. The chamber's energy shifted. Senators who'd been neutral now nodded subtly. Reporters exchanged glances, knowing they had a story. And on X, the clip of Kennedy's crawfish boil line was already racking up views. Warren, for her part, maintained her composure, but the momentum had slipped. Kennedy hadn't just responded, he'd stolen the show. The hearing was barely over before the internet took over. Within minutes, clips of Kennedy's comeback flooded social media. On TikTok, creators paired the crawfish boil line with dramatic sound effects and captions like "Savage." YouTube Shorts dubbed it Warren versus Kennedy. Southern swagger wins on X hashtags like #Kennedy clapback and #Warren. Shutdown trended globally with users posting memes of Kennedy as a chess grandmaster or a cowboy riding away from an explosion. The reaction wasn't limited to political junkies. Everyday users joined the frenzy, sharing gifs of Kennedy's smile and Warren's pause. One viral meme showed a crawfish wielding a tiny gavel captioned, "When you mess with Louisiana." Another depicted Warren as a boxer dazed by a knockout punch. Political commentary channels on YouTube pounced with titles like "Kennedy Humiliates," "Warren in 30 Seconds," and "Why This Was a Political Masterstroke." One creator paused the clip to analyze Kennedy's body language. "See how he leans back? That's pure confidence." He knew he had her. Mainstream media followed suit. CNN and Fox News replayed the exchange during prime time, with pundits dissecting every word. The New York Times called it a case study in political performance, while the Wall Street Journal noted Kennedy's ability to connect with voters through humor. Even late-night hosts got in on the action, with Jimmy Fallon joking, "Kennedy's comeback was so good, I'm pretty sure crawfish are now running for Senate," but not everyone was Team Kennedy. Warren's supporters pushed back, arguing she brought substance while Kennedy relied on style. "Sure, he's funny." One user wrote, "But funny doesn't fix inflation." Progressive outlets like The Nation defended Warren's focus on inequality, calling Kennedy's response a distraction from the facts. A viral thread on X listed Warren's statistics, urging viewers to look past the one-liners. Still, the sheer volume of reactions pro and con showed the moment's impact. In an era where attention is currency, Kennedy had struck gold. This clash wasn't just about two senators was a snapshot of American politics in the digital age. Decades ago, a Senate spat like this might have been a footnote in the next day's papers. Today, it's a cultural event clipped, shared, and memed into oblivion. The Warren-Kennedy showdown revealed three truths about modern politics. It's part policy, part performance, and all about the moment. First, delivery matters as much as substance. Warren came armed with facts, voting records, economic data, and moral urgency. Her argument was coherent and principled, rooted in her long-standing fight against corporate power. But Kennedy played a different game. His crawfish boil line wasn't a policy rebuttal. It was a vibe. It connected with viewers who value authenticity and wit over wonkish detail. In a world of 15-second clips, a memorable quip can outshine a spreadsheet. Second, the internet amplifies everything. Platforms like X, TikTok, and YouTube turned a Senate hearing into a global spectacle. The speed was staggering. Within hours, Kennedy's line was a hashtag, a meme, a ringtone. This wasn't just about virality. It was about cultural resonance. Kennedy's Southern charm and Warren's fiery intensity became archetypes in a broader narrative of red versus blue, heartland versus elite. The internet didn't just report the story, it shaped it. Third, every politician is now a performer. The Senate chamber is no longer a closed arena. It's a stage where every word can be weaponized or celebrated. Warren and Kennedy both knew the cameras were rolling, but Kennedy's experience as a communicator gave him the edge. His ability to distill complex ideas into a single shareable phrase showed a keen understanding of the digital audience. Warren, for all her brilliance, leaned on traditional debate tactics, logical, linear, and lengthy in 2025. That's often not enough. To understand why this moment hit so hard, it's worth looking at the players. Elizabeth Warren, 75, is a titan of the progressive left. A former law professor, she rose to prominence with her critiques of Wall Street and her role in creating the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Her 2020 presidential run cemented her as a voice for systemic change. Though critics call her dogmatic and divisive, in the Senate, she's a bulldog, unafraid to confront opponents with data and moral clarity. Her attack on Kennedy was classic Warren, fierce, fact-driven, and unapologetic. John Kennedy, 73, is a different breed. A Louisiana native with a law degree from Oxford, he blends Ivy League intellect with down-home charm. Elected to the Senate in 2016, he's known for colorful metaphors and a knack for diffusing tension with humor. Critics see him as a showman who prioritizes sound bites over substance. But supporters admire his ability to cut through Washington jargon. Kennedy's comeback wasn't just a defense. It was a performance that played to his strengths. Their clash was more than personal. It was ideological. Warren represents a progressive push for structural reform, while Kennedy embodies a conservative ethos of limited government and individual opportunity. Their exchange crystallized a divide that defines American politics. Equity versus aspiration, regulation versus freedom. That it played out in such a dramatic viral way only amplified its stakes. Days after the hearing, the Warren-Kennedy moment was still reverberating. Fundraising emails from both senators referenced the exchange, with Warren touting her fight for fairness and Kennedy leaning into his common-sense brand. Political strategists took notes, with some predicting a surge in folksy rhetoric as candidates chased the next viral hit. On X, users debated whether Kennedy's line was genius or gimmickry, while Warren's allies urged her to keep bringing the facts. The moment also sparked broader questions. Is politics becoming too theatrical? Does the internet reward style over substance? Should politicians lean into viral moments or resist the temptation? There's no easy answer. Warren's data-driven approach resonates with policy wonks and activists. But Kennedy's quip cut through the noise in a way facts often don't. Both approaches have merit, but in a fragmented media landscape, capturing attention is half the battle. For viewers, the takeaway is clear. Politics is no longer confined to the ballot box or the Senate floor. It's a 247th show, and we're all in the audience. Moments like Warren versus Kennedy remind us that democracy is messy, human, and increasingly shaped by the platforms we scroll. Whether you cheered Kennedy's wit or admired Warren's tenacity, one thing is certain. This wasn't just a hearing. It was a glimpse into the future of how we argue, persuade, and perform in the public square. What did you think of Kennedy's comeback? Was it a brilliant takedown or a clever distraction? Should politicians prioritize bold zingers or stick to the facts? Share your take, and let's keep the conversation.